Behavioural safety, cultural safety, that's what our company does. Engagement's just one little part of it. Before we get into engagement, I'd like to talk to you about health and safety history for a little bit. If you went back in time, 150 years ago, that's this side of the graph over here, there were lots of incidents and accidents. People died up and down the UK in all the different types of industry that we had back then. There's the famous story of the construction of the Forth Rail Bridge from Edinburgh to Fife, where one morning one of the men fell off in an accident and was killed. Really unfortunate. His foreman went round to the house, knocked on the door and said to his now widow, "I'm really sorry, but your husband's fallen off the bridge and he's dead." She was really upset, as you can imagine, so he just stood and he waited. When she recovered a little bit, he said, "So are there any other men in the house then that can come and finish his shift this afternoon?" That's what used to happen back then. So around about that time, they brought in the first hardware engineering solutions for health and safety. So harnesses for guys working at height, guards for machines, the first basic PPE. And you see the reduction on the graph there, huge reduction in the number of accidents and deaths. But then, sorry, I need to walk in front a little bit, this bit here, it plateaus out, 1950s, 1960s. You can only get accidents down so far by having that one type of approach. What if I tell you that's 1974 there? What happens then in terms of health and safety? Excellent, well done. The Health and Safety at Work Act comes in. The law changes. It's now no longer optional to protect your employees from the environment they work in. You've got to give people procedures to follow. Equipment, safety equipment, those sorts of things. And you've got to tell the HSE how many people you've hurt. Look what happens after that. A huge reduction again in the number of accidents and fatalities. But then there's another plateau here throughout the late part of the 1970s, because you can only get accidents down so far by having those two types of approach. You've got to do something else. And if you don't, you end up with this thing over here, which is called the safety wave, where you have long periods of time without an accident, and then you'll have an accident or two. And then you go again with no accidents, and then you'll have an accident or two. Now, if you took that as the decade of the 1980s, because we're looking at health and safety history, there was a lot of accidents that killed a lot of people that haven't happened to the same extent since and didn't happen to the same extent before, but there were lots during the 1980s. Tell me famous ones. Piper Alpha, 1988, 167 people died. Any other ones? Herald of Free Enterprise, the Dover to Zeebrugge ferry that sank, killed 193 people, yeah? Bhopal in India, 1984, killed 3,001 night. Chernobyl in the Ukraine, 1986, we don't know how many that killed because the Russians didn't tell us. Football, Bradford City Fire, Hillsborough, Heysel, all during the 1980s. The London Underground, King's Cross fire, killed 31 people as well, 1987. 1986 in America, Ronald Reagan, President of the United States, wants to put a teacher in space. Remember that one, Space Shuttle Challenger? It was a Thursday morning, just like it is today. And the engineer said it's too cold. If you try and launch today, these rubber things might not seal. It could lead to a gas leak. It will explode, blow up the shuttle, kill everybody on board. All you need to do is wait 2 days. The temperature's predicted to be warmer. Everything will be okay. The NASA people said, but wait a minute. If we wait 2 days, that's a Saturday. So when we launch the rocket up there, this teacher will be teaching empty classrooms because kids don't go to school at the weekend. What a brilliant reason to kill 7 people, wasn't it? They made them launch on the Thursday when it was too cold, and exactly what the engineer said would happen, happened. It blew up and killed everybody on board. What do you think was going on during the 1980s in terms of health and safety that led to those kind of accidents? There's one word that sums it up. If you wrap people up in personal protective equipment so they feel really safe, and they know they've got the law behind them and a health and safety team that looks after health and safety, what might that lead to? Complacency. That's exactly what it was. And the Herald of Free Enterprise, the Dover to Zeebrugge ferry, was the classic example. They closed the bow doors as they were sailing out rather than closing them before they sailed out. Why would they do that? Saves time. It's one of the big things in human nature, saving time, as well as saving effort and energy, saving or making money, and having fun. That's the 5 things that make up a human being today. But this wasn't the first time they'd sailed out, closing the bow doors as they went. They'd done it lots of times before. But everybody had switched off. Everybody had become complacent. They weren't thinking, yeah, but what if the weather was different? What if the waves were higher? Water could come on the deck. Because of the way this thing's designed, it will sink. They just switched off. What I'd like to do is put our model on top of this for our safety culture development model. The worst kind of culture you can have is on the left-hand side, an avoidance of safety. We don't do anything about health and safety, just get the job done. Now, a lot of years ago in the UK, you might have had quite a lot of cultures like that. Then you move on to have a slightly better culture, which is minimal compliance. We do the bare minimum. We don't do anything about health and safety until it's gone wrong. Those two levels, as you can see in the UK, are illegal because we've not got as far as 1974 yet. The first legal level is to have broad compliance, where we do things because the law says so. So HSC tell us we've got to train people, give them equipment, procedures to follow. That's what we do. That's the law. Then these companies think, well, why are we still having accidents? Because we're doing all the legal compliance stuff. So then they are tempted to overdo the procedures a bit. They put more procedures in place and they develop the procedures they've already got until the system becomes very complicated. We call that becoming system obsessed. Just as a little tester as to whether SGN is system obsessed, you all get emails? Does anybody not get enough emails? Now, that might be a little indication of system obsession when you're getting hundreds and hundreds of emails and things like that. The hardest move is to move to a human-focused culture. You still do all the legal stuff, you still have to do that, but you don't have this obsession with the numbers and with figures, stuff like that. And the human-focused bit is more proactive. We look for what could go wrong rather than what has gone wrong in the past. In order to do all of that, you need all the people involved. And that's why I loved Andy's doodle video at the end there, getting engagement from all the people. You want everybody to have a say, you want everybody to feel involved within it. And it's the hardest cultural move for any organization. There is a top level, that's fully integrated safety. That's where we never have accidents. The health and safety is brilliant, but we're always looking to improve. Productivity is great as well, though. The quality of what we do, the environmental side, all fantastic. And everybody's really happy all the time. Well, at Ryder Marsh, we've got 20 years experience working with 400 companies all over the world. We've never found a company that sits at that level for any length of time. You might find a pocket or a team that does, but then either the job changes, the team changes, or complacency settles in, and that's when your next accident could be around the corner. So our job over the next few years working with you is to help you to move as far up into human focused and see if we can get you to be the first fully integrated company that we've ever worked with. That's our challenge and yours as well. A lot of people say, Quentin, all very interesting, but that's theory. What about the real world? Well, this is SGN's accident statistics over the last few years. Looks very much like a safety wave, doesn't it? So you go periods of time thinking that you're doing really well and no accident. You are doing really well. You've got a very good safety culture and very good statistics. But still, that is a safety wave, isn't it? The only way you're going to break out of that safety wave is when everybody thinks, health and safety is my responsibility. I look after myself and I look after other people, and they do the same. So we're trying to get engagement when we do that. Now, I met Ken Woodward that works for Coca-Cola a couple of years ago. And he said to me, at Coca-Cola, when I was working, they had a huge production focus. Everything was about getting the job done. They called us trained production animals, and we were really good at it. Ken had an accident and he got blinded. You might have heard him speaking from time to time. He's quite one of these famous speakers that goes around and talks about health and safety, talks really well. And I met him at a conference a few years ago, and I said, you said at your speech there, Ken, that you kept working for Coca-Cola for 10 years after your accident. What was your big thing? He says, well, firstly, he kind of said to the managers, far too much focus on production. You want to try and look after the people a bit, get them engaged. But also, one of the major factors in my accident was the procedures and how complicated they were. So I spent the next 10 years working on them and managed to reduce the procedures by 40%. He says, and I was really proud of that because that was a major factor. But also, this engagement with the workforce actually led to an 18% increase in productivity as well, because the best companies don't just do productivity well, they don't just do safety well, the quality well, the environment well, the engagement of staff well, they do everything well. So it's really important that we try and engage with our workforce. Now, we talk about engagement a lot, and I'd like to ask you, if you're engaged in something like a football match or you're engaged to somebody. What does that mean when you're engaged? You're committed to it, yeah? I'm thinking about a football match that I was watching last night, and you're interested in it. It's kind of like exciting. It gets you going. It's fun. It's all those different things, isn't it? But if you're engaged to a person, you're interested in them, you're committed to them, you want it to work, all of these different things. So that's my idea. Okay, so that's what engagement is. When you've not got engagement, non-engagement, your brain produces a chemical called cortisol, which leads to all these negative emotions and feelings there. When you do have engagement, your brain does the opposite. It produces oxytocin instead, and you get all these positive things over there. So if you're a leader or a manager, you want your staff to be engaged because that's what you'll get from them. And if you are the person being engaged, well, there's health benefits there. Something John mentioned about was health fit for the future. So it's going to look after your health and well-being of your staff more too. Traditional view of health and safety. If you forget to wear your seatbelt, just that once, who are you prepared to kill? No seatbelt, no excuse. Why doesn't that kind of advert work? Do you know why? Sorry? Well, research shows that it doesn't work terribly well because it's negative, and we don't like to think about negative things, and because of a thing called the fundamental attribution error, really fancy title that means bad things happen to other people, it won't happen to me. And other people are muppets when they're driving, other people are idiots, I'm safe. So we would all look at that and say, yeah, that's horrible, but I wouldn't do that. So that kind of advert, the research has shown the impact is very low. I've got a video to show you. Tell me what you think of this advert. What do you think of that advert? Yeah. Never forget it. That's powerful then, isn't it? That's what you want, is people to remember the message. It's personal, isn't it? And it's positive as well. That's the way we'd like to see health and safety done in the future. Not this negative, if you do this, this will happen, that will be bad. If you don't do this, this will happen, that will be bad. No, but if you do this, this is the good that will happen. How do you get engagement? Well, here's the Coca-Cola lorry for Christmas. Here's Santa Claus is coming. And they very cleverly marketed that at children. So when the children see the Santa Claus lorry, they think about Coca-Cola. When they see Coca-Cola, they think about Christmas. They think about fun. It's linking all these different things together to get engagement by making it personal to children, by making it positive. Got a few quotes here because the time's just about run out. This was with a few companies that we've worked with where they've said that engagement has helped in other areas of the business. Not only do you have happier staff and their well-being's better, but it helps in terms of productivity. It helps in terms of quality and other things as well. So just from a few other people we've worked with. Just like to have a final question for you. When you're wanting to engage people, sometimes you want to subtly influence them. You might want to nudge them to behave a certain way without them even really realizing it. This is a hotel foyer, And the sign says, "Hate Mondays, help yourself to a little Ogilvy treat to blow those blues away." On the table in the background, half of it has got the unhealthy option, cakes and sweets. The other half has got the healthy options, fruit. Now, before 9 o'clock in the morning, 80% of the people that walked up to the table took the unhealthy option, the cake and the sweets. No surprise there. Yeah. After 9 o'clock, 80% took the healthy option. Why do you think that was? Any ideas? How you could subtly influence people to the healthy option? The mirror, excellent. They put the mirror behind the table at 9 o'clock. No, they did replenish the cakes, yeah. But before 9 o'clock, you could walk up to the table and you had a free choice. After 9 o'clock, you could see yourself in a mirror and I better have some fruit then. Really powerful way to influence people, and they don't even know you've done it. So this is the end of my talk, folks. That's my challenge to you, is to find ways to influence people in all ways of your business, to subtly influence them, to nudge them, and they don't even know you've done it, but always with the best intention.